Well, good day again. So for today, yet again gonna continue with the first Marvel shared universe of cartoons from 66 to 68. And the topic I'll be yammering on about today is going to be
Prince Namor, the Submariner!
Oh yes, indeed so! With of course the whole usual thingamaroo that I do here with, the whole recapping the episode itself. I'll give you some of my super cool thoughts about what I think about stuff about it, and then we'll talk some more about the Submariner and things about like that after. So alright, let's go! Alright, so right off the bat, we are in Atlantis. Pretty nice place, but the ruler of the joint, Prince Namor, is totally ill. Crazy fever, and wouldn't he be called King Namor if he's the ruler and not Prince? Maybe it's some Atlantean custom, I don't know. Anywho, so his lady friend, the Lady Dorma, is like, I'll watch over him and I'll be here when he wakes up, so it'll be good. But no, because she passes out, Namor wakes up and takes off. Gone. Where did he go? Well, while he's still in a fever state, he feels compelled to go to the surface world, to New York. Something is beckoning him there, but he knows not why. And as he walks up on the beach, he totally passes out. And for some reason, this also gives him amnesia.
Not the good.
So there's a police officer who's trying to throw him into the drunk tank because you can't sleep here, sir. So Namor beats him up and takes off. Flies away. And yes, he can fly because he has little wings on his ankles. So there you go. So this cop tells the police chief about, this encounter, and the police chief is like, McGird, that's Prince Namor. Man, this guy is horrible. He hates surface dwellers, like he's planning something bad for us. We have to find him and stop him. And so they go out to do just that.
Meanwhile,
there is a second party who's really interested in capturing Namor as well, led by the mysterious Mrs. B. Nice. She sends her goons, Freddy and George, to gank him wherever they can find him. So it's kind of like a whole cat versus mouse versus cat kind of a story where the cops and Mrs. B's crew are trying to capture Namor, but he always gives everybody the slip. Pretty crafty underwater guy, this guy. But the police finally catch him because they realize he loses his strength the longer he is out of water. So, they looked around everywhere and they found him at an aquarium where they easily captured him in a net and then threw his buttocks in jail. So poor guy, right? Like he has amnesia, he doesn't know what he's doing on land, he just knows he has to find something. He's still totally sick, like everything about this kind of makes no sense for the guy, and now he's in jail. But things aren't so bad because Freddy and George turn out are not really kind of bad guys or crooks like you're kind of led to believe earlier, because they paid a $5,000 bail to spring Namor out of the joint. They are going to take him to see Lady B, and then if he wants to take off after that, he can. If he wants to take off, he can. Okay, what? Why would the New York Police Department allow that? Like, they have assessed Namor to be like a massive threat to human life on land, As the police chief has said, he's done horrible things in the past to the city and to the people. Like, he's basically a terrorist to them. And they're just gonna let him walk? Like, they scoured the whole city trying to find this guy. They put every resource that they could to find him because he's that dangerous. And now, someone paid bail, man. See you later. But, it is a kid's cartoon, so what do I know? So Namor, still with amnesia, but I think feeling better, he meets up with Mrs. B, and she tells him of his past. Well, his parents' past, anyway. Turns out, way back in the day, there were surface dwellers on board the SS Oracle, and they were blowing up icebergs, at the South Pole with depth charges and all that. And unbeknownst to them, they were doing a lot of damage to the city on the bottom of the ocean, which was Atlantis. So the king wanted to send an army up there and say what the hell's going on, but his daughter, Princess Fane, she went up there instead, kind of like a reconnaissance to see what's going on, and bam! Fell in love with the captain of the ship. They got married, and well, the king of Atlantis was like, what the hell's going on up there? Go send up that army to kill the humans. And so they did. Princess Fane was still, pretty sad, but, she had enough time with the ship's captain to make a baby, and boom, Namor is born. So Namor was like, okay, Mrs. B, how the hell do you know this stuff about me? Like, I can't even remember my name. And she's all like, I am the mother of the ship's captain, so you are my grandson. You can see our family resemblance with the eyebrows. I'm heavily implying somehow that I'm dying and I want to give you all of my inheritance, because, you know, you're pretty awesome. So it's like, oh, that's why Namor was compelled to come to land, you know, just to cash out some money. But he's all like, you know, like, thanks for the offer, but I should really get back to underwater because that's kind of where I thrive. And so he does. She drives him, you know, to a boat. They go to the ocean. He jumps in and goes back to his love, Lady Dorma. So, I guess, yeah, that's pretty much that. He probably could have worked out some deal to get some money, you know. It's always kind of good to have surface money if you're ever gonna go to the surface again, but we'll see how that goes. And yeah, so he's underwater, and I guess, you know, things are pretty hip with that and all that kind of stuff. So that is the end of this fantastic tale. Well, that was actually a pretty good episode, I thought. The only thing I didn't really like about it was that some things really dragged on for quite some time, so they didn't really seem to have a whole lot of the script kind of fleshed out, you know? Like, for example, when Namor was just kind of walking around the city trying to figure out what he was looking for, like, they really dragged that out quite a bit. Also, the whole cat and mouse game between Namor and Mrs. B's people and the New York Police Department, that kind of got dragged on quite a bit too. Like, that part makes more sense because it was really a main part of the whole episode, so I guess I can let that go. You know, it did seem to go on for quite a bit though, but, you know, I do like the way Namor speaks in this one. You know, he's a prince, right? So he's still very regal and still very right? Much less so than the way Thor would speak, which was very over the top, you know. So, you know, to hear Namor with his actually really awesome voice, it was actually pretty good. I am kind of a history buff, you know, in a whole lot of topics, so when it comes to, say, like cartoons and cartoon characters and their comic character history, I really do like that stuff. So with Namor, man, historically, this dude is the first ever superhero that was created by Marvel Comics, even though they were called Timely Comics at the time. And he has been around since the 1930s, you know, so there was a lot of things that happened in his comic books back in the day that did not specifically happen in this episode, but were kind of hinted towards. Like, Namor is kind of like an anti-hero. Sometimes he's seen as a villain, sometimes he's seen as a hero. He's kind of all three of those things, really, right? He's doing whatever's best for the people of Atlantis. So sometimes his beliefs, you know, align with certain humans, and sometimes it doesn't align with any human whatsoever. So in the episode, the police chief was really worried that Namor was back in town because last time he was in New York, man, he really just destroyed a lot of stuff. He didn't specify what, but you have to know Namor's history to kind of fill in the gaps there. So there was a point that he was really pissed off with the USA and he flooded New York. And it was a massive flooding, like these massive tidal waves, right? So obviously, major destruction, major death, like the police chief would remember this and doesn't want this to happen again. So he needs to get Namor out of there. If you knew that previously watching this episode, you'd be like, oh yeah, man, I can dig why, you know, he wants him out there so bad. They don't really explain it in the episode, just like, yeah, this guy did something bad back in the day. Maybe he robbed a bank or something, who knows? But no, man, he flooded the joint. But he's not all horrible, right? Like, during World War II, he fought alongside Captain America and the rest of the invaders against the Nazis and all those horrible people. So he still does want to do good, but, you know, if you really threaten Atlantis, stay out of his way. The Star Trek fan in me really has to wonder if, you know, Mr. Spock was influenced in any way to Namor, you know? Maybe not, I don't know, but, you know, slight bit of a resemblance, so we'll leave it as it is. So other than that, really, you know, like, I did actually like this episode, so if you haven't checked it out, you know, check it out and, you know, see what you think. And other than that, let's see what else we can find out, some behind the scenes stuff and all that kind of crazy, funny things. So let's talk about Namor and his origin. He made his worldwide debut in Motion Picture Funnies Weekly #1, which came out in April of 1939. That title didn't really last long, and it wasn't really a comic book. It was just a promotional magazine that was handed out at theaters. He just happened to be part of it. So that debut story was retold in Marvel Comics #1 from August of 1939. That was more of a real comic book, so it worked out pretty good there. And both of those magazines were printed by Timely Comics, which, as we all might know, eventually kind of somehow became Marvel Comics. So huzzah! I guess just a quick note, Aquaman from DC Comics was first debuted in 1941, so he was technically kind of a homage in a way to Namor. Both of them are half human, half Atlantean. Both of them are princes and, kind of rule the kingdom, but Namor was first. And this Namor cartoon is actually quite different than the other 4 cartoon series I just talked about in the last few weeks with Captain America, Iron Man, Thor, and the Hulk. Because like I've mentioned with those, the stories and the artwork from the cartoons were taken 100 billion% from the comic books, right? Each comic panel was slightly animated, for a scene, and the story was, well, let's say 95% completely carbon copy to what happened in the comic books. Like, it's a comic book coming to life, as I've said before. Whereas this Namor cartoon is completely different from that. It isn't taken from a single comic book or a couple of comic books. It's basically an original story. Well, okay, not 100%. Like, his origin is still there, and some elements from the comics, of course, still, kind of made it through to the story. But the majority of it is actually original, which is quite refreshing to see. So let's do a little deeper diving into that stuff there. So yes, from the 1939 comic books, with his origin story, pretty much the same thing, right? Like, there was a scientific expedition to the South Pole on board the ship, the Oracle. They were blowing up icebergs, which were accidentally destroying the city of Atlantis below. Atlantean Princess Fen, came up and married Captain Mackenzie. They had a kid, all that stuff was pretty much the same.
Except
it was much more sinister, right? In the cartoon, Princess Fen was more of a reconnaissance, scout kind of a thing to kind of see what the hell was going on on the surface there. Just happened to fall in love, and the Atlanteans just happened to kill everybody on board there. Whereas in the comics, it was very sinister. She didn't go up there with any good intention. She was a spy. It was espionage. She wanted to learn the human secrets so they can destroy not just them, but, humans in general, right? So yeah, pretty much the same story, just kind of softened up a bit, right? And so in Marvel Comics #1, with that origin, we also had the origin of the original Human Torch, Jim Hammond, that human android kind of fire guy. I only mention Human Torch because he's kind of important going forward in the comics, because the concept of Namor having amnesia in New York City, that is taken from Fantastic Four #4 from 1961, and that explains why we haven't seen Namor since the 1950s, because he just forgot who he was the whole time and was just living as a homeless bearded man, in New York, until Johnny Storm, the second Human Torch, found out who this mysterious bearded man is, kind of cleaned him up and dumped him into the ocean to kind of jog his memory. And it worked! This was actually pretty neat because Johnny Storm was reading old comics of the Submariner, and he's like, wait a second, this drawing in this comic book looks like that guy over there. But any rate, so those are the 2 aspects from the cartoon that were inspired by the comics. The rest, totally original. So yeah. Of course, Namor did get his own comic book series going again in 1968 with
Prince Namor, the Submariner.
And that, of course, was 2 years after this cartoon series. So in the cartoon, we couldn't have Johnny Storm, and the Fantastic Four helping Namor out because the TV rights to the Fantastic Four were owned by Hanna-Barbera at this time. They had their own Fantastic Four cartoon, not part of this Marvel universe, of cartoons, because completely different production companies and all that. So I guess, them not being able to use Human Torch and not probably wanting to explain Namor's 30-year history up to this point, they just probably scrapped everything and really dumbed it down and made a quick, streamlined cartoon storyline different from the comics, which kind of makes sense, right? So seeing as I'm talking about the first Marvel shared universe, we have to compare it to the current Marvel Cinematic Universe, and currently at the time of making this video, Namor is not officially part of the MCU. Nope.
But rumors abound!
So, during Avengers Endgame, Okoye from Wakanda has been mentioning that they have detected underwater earthquakes off the coast of Africa, which made everybody freak out, right? Okay, well, not everybody, right? Not the Marvel characters. The Marvel watching audience, we all freaked out because we're like, underwater? earthquakes, that can only mean one thing.
Prince Namor has returned!
But we don't really know. It's not official or anything yet. And also at this point, it is heavily rumored that Namor will make his MCU debut in the movie Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. And that a possible storyline would be a war of Wakanda versus Atlantis, which we have seen in the comic series Avengers vs. X-Men, where those two nations did indeed battle. But who knows, right? It's just rumor. Or according to Andrew Garfield, it's just Photoshop, so it's all cool. So we shall see how things turn out. I'm pretty sure we will see Namor in the MCU pretty soon, so you know, that's pretty cool. But yeah, other than that, we got some pretty cool basics on Namor in his own cartoon series, and we shall see how things flush out. Yeah, and other than that, I guess that's that. Right on, and there you go. So thanks for watching the video. I hope you liked it as much as I did making it. Also, feel free to check out the source material that I featured in this video. And if you want to leave a comment on anything you may have liked or things I might have missed in this, you know, feel free to do so. Or anything else, you know, just to say hi. That's cool too. And other than that, you know, have a great day. Thanks.